What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, back with another fall camp update, man. We had three of these at the end of last week. We're going to bring them all week this week as we get into the start of football, man. Is Saturday. Week 0 kicks off Saturday night. We're so pumped. We're going to preview some of those big games come Saturday. And also, we are live tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time. Monday, August 24th, as we preview the Pac 12. Then Wednesday, we're also going live 7 p.m. Central to preview the SEC, which will wrap up our conference previews. If you're looking for a conference, man, there's a whole playlist for conference previews. We've done them all. We're wrapping it up with the Pac 12 and the SEC this week. And then after on Thursday morning, man, we got episodes dropping for all the game previews for this weekend. So make sure to subscribe now right here on YouTube and any and all podcast streaming platforms so you can catch up on the latest college football news, because we are your one-stop shop for college football stuff, man. We are the only channel out there that covers every level of Power 5, Group of 5, FCS, HBCU football. We got it all right here on the Bluebloods, man. So make sure to subscribe so y'all can rock with us all season. But we got a good, I feel like we got a good mix this episode, Brandon. We got some SEC, we got some Big Ten, we got some Pac-12. We're going all across the country. So let's get to Big Ten country first. We're going over to Michigan State to look at what Mel Tucker is doing up there with the Spartans, man, looking to rebound after a pretty mediocre season last year. This is a program that has kind of hit a low here, Brandon, but a lot of people are expecting them to bounce back big time. But the big storyline here, man, is the quarterback battle. Anthony Russo, Payton Thorne, Justin thinned over at Spartan Tailgate for 247, came out a little less than 18 hours ago and said from the most recent scrimmage that there really wasn't any significant movement, that the quarterback reps were once again a 50-50 split in terms of first-team reps. So he was saying that the staff knows which way they're leaning, Brandon. They're not kind of tipping their hand either way. But there really wasn't anything earth-shattering. Neither guy has really separated himself in this race. So for you, Brandon, who do you think might be the small favorite, and who do you think ultimately gets the first snap of the season for Michigan State at the QB1 spot?
It's kind of a hard question for me to answer, Zach, just because, like you said, they've been splitting snaps like 50-50. And there's really been no indication of, is there one preferred starter? I have a feeling that Russo might end up being the starter at the very beginning of the season, just because I don't know if he transfers into Michigan State without a promise, or at least like a good feeling that, hey, you are going to be our guy. You're going to lead this offense, whatever the deal is. This is his last season, though, Zach. So that, if I were the coach, and I'm not, obviously I'm here on this podcast, but if I were, I'm going to go ahead and give you the same argument that I gave you for Max Johnson over Myles Brennan before Myles Brennan broke his arm, Zach. Last season was Thorne's first season with the Spartans, and he has 4 more years of eligibility. So if I'm Michigan State, I'm sitting here thinking, let's throw this guy in. He already played last season a good bit. He already played last season. Let's go ahead and throw him back in. He has time not only to win the community over, but he has time to get more experience as his career furthers. You don't want to risk this guy transferring out or finding another school finding another school that he'll fall in love with, leaving this program because he's not getting playing time this season, Zach. If this is your guy, if this guy that you offered is someone that you want to be part of Michigan State for the remaining, 2, 3, 4 years, however long he's there, I think you have to pass him the baton, and you have to show him that you fully believe in him.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess this follows what I've been saying. I mean, we've covered a few quarterback battles, and shout out to our guy Josh Pate at 247 for saying this, because this is a perfect way to put it. You never want to you just never want to name a starter by default. You want someone to go in, perform, and take the job and leave no doubt in anyone's mind that he's the best quarterback on the field. And we're seeing across the country right now, there's a few quarterback battles that's not happening. Texas is having a big QB battle, and we've already covered Auburn, Brandon, but after this weekend, a lot of people are saying TJ Finley is going to overtake Bo Nix after he's struggling. And so there's a few programs around the country where you're like, man, has anyone claimed that job? We saw CJ Stroud go out and take that job. We're going to talk about Dylan Morris at Washington went out and took that job. So for me, it's kind of worrisome that no one's claimed it. But if no one's going to claim it, Brandon, I would personally, I would probably go with Payton Thorne.
Yeah,
And the reason I would go with Payton Thorne is he's going to offer you that longevity that an Anthony Russo wouldn't. If Anthony Russo transferred in and he doesn't bring his game with him, it's not Michigan State's prerogative to make sure he gets one last year playing. Like,
right.
if you wanted your one last year to be a starter, bring that starter energy and bring that starter performance. Like this is a business, man. This isn't a charity. We start handing out starting jobs at Power 5 universities in the Big Ten. Like, you got to go out there and earn it. And when you look at his career, Brandon, he played at Temple and he was pretty good. I mean, he's thrown for over 6,000 yards, 44 touchdowns, but the 32 interceptions is what's really concerning. Brandon, his sophomore year when he started, his interception touchdown ratio was 14-14, so a 1-to-1 ratio. Then he had 21 touchdowns to 12 interceptions in his junior season, and last year it was 9-6. I don't love that,
I
just
don't either.
personally.
I don't either.
And I mean, his completion percentage jumped up to 68%. But then on the flip side, when you look at Payton Thorne last year, he played in 4 games, threw for 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions.
Yeah,
It's just, for me, when you're Mel Tucker, and I feel like the receiving core is pretty good over at Michigan State. Like, I don't think they're going to compete for any Big Ten title this year, but if you want to take a step in the right direction, give it to the second year quarterback who you gave a shot last year. If there's no separation, I don't think you're required to give it to the guy who's only going to be there for a year. Let Payton Thorne put his feet to the fire and say, man, it's time to roll. Like, claim this starting spot, and then if it doesn't work out to this year, you can hit the transfer portal again or bring someone in from high school. But with me, I don't think you should just automatically default and give it to Anthony Russo. But I think this next week is going to be very tough. I believe, according to the reports, they have one more scrimmage, and then Mel Tucker wants to kind of make this decision. And what this next scrimmage is going to tell you is it going to be a default decision, or is it going to be someone steps up and claims the job? But according to all reports, a lot of people think there's a 55-45 lean somewhere, but no one can place their finger on where that lean is. So personally, I think Payton Thorne might have the slight edge here, Brandon, just being the younger player and competing with Rousseau. But I can see the argument fans want to make where you're like, okay, we got to go with the guy who's more experienced because he gives us a better chance to win. But the interception and the completion percentage for both these guys has to take a step forward. And it's, for me, just a tad bit concerning that neither guy separated themselves.
I think you're right, Zach. I think it's a little bit more permissible from Payton Thorne. Having that that 1-to-1, the Jameis Winston ratio, if you will, than it is for Anthony Russo, just because he was a true freshman. He didn't have this offseason to start with his team. So I'm willing to give him a pass. And that's who, like I said, I would prefer him be the starter at Michigan State if I'm a Michigan State fan personally. To me, it's super concerning they haven't named a starter. Like, they play on September 3rd. Like, they play next Friday, and there's no starter. To me, I don't know. I don't know how you do that, but there's a lot of teams in this country that are doing the same exact thing.
I'd be very shocked if they didn't name a tentative starter this week.
Yeah.
Based on all reports, that's what people are going to think is, like, after that last scrimmage and going into game week, they want to have the guy that's going to take that first snap. But I don't think Mel Tucker's going to hesitate to rotate guys if someone doesn't play well. And so I think you might go with Payton Thorne early. If it doesn't work out, you have the experience of Anthony Russo to lean on down the stretch. But for me, I think this is an interesting quarterback battle, Brandon. It's really going to determine whether Michigan State can kind of drag themselves from that bottom tier of the Big Ten up to that middle, somewhat competitive tier in the Big Ten. So this is super important. But let's move on to SEC country. If you're a Michigan State fan, comment below who you'd rather have be the starter and why. But Brandon, let's get down to the SEC down there at LSU, and we'll take this one at a time. So I'll highlight everything that's happened because there's a million things going on this camp, it seems like. And shout out to the guys at Go 247, man. They have done – listen, we've done a lot of these fall camp updates. They have, like, some of the most high quality information I've seen, man. They have like to the yardage stats. They have like film. Like I don't know what those guys over at Go 247 are doing differently than everybody else, but they are absolutely killing it.
Let me say this too, Zach. It's them, and I think there's a very close second there, and it's SB Nation. It's In the Valley Shook. I don't know if you check them out, dude, but that's where I get like most of my.
Are those the people that said Auburn had the best O line in the SEC?
I'm not. It might have been In the Valley Shook, but they're usually pretty good. They're usually really good.
Okay, I'll give them a pass because after I read that article, I wanted to throw up a little bit because that was a tough look. Auburn Twitter was in an uproar, but guys, they just had another scrimmage, which a lot of questions were answered. Max Johnson had a pretty good day, 11 for 19, 125, a touchdown. But Garrett Nussmaier was really the star, 18 of 32, over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. This scrimmage told a lot because it was 1s versus 1s, 2 versus 2s. So it was the best versus the best and so on. Orgeron was very, very, I guess, impressed with Nussmaier at the quarterback spot. Cade York looks better than ever, man, hitting 50-yard field goals with ease. LSU's got that kicker spot. Yeah, 54. So he looks outstanding. And this is a common theme, guys. The young wide receivers are showing out for the Tigers. Kayshon Boutte is not out there right now. He was held out of practice. They said it was nothing to worry about. I think it was just kind of limiting his reps, keeping him out of harm's way. But Devontae Lee, Malik Neighbors, and Deion Smith have been performing outstanding. Those are names you hear all the time. And also Brian Thomas has been another name that a lot of LSU fans are excited about at that spot. Ty Davis-Price at running back was held out just because they didn't want to re-aggravate his injury. John Emery was not out there, but Armani Goodwin was out there. Josh Williams was out there, and each of them performed pretty well. Josh Williams had 7 rushes for 66 yards. They also gave Corey Kiner a few carries. So, Brandon, this is the thing here. A lot of people have questions about that running back position. With I guess Davis-Price out due to injury concerns, possibly John Emery not really practicing, who do you expect to be the number 1 running back? Because for me, I thought Davis-Price was by far and away going to be the number 1 running back. Has that changed? And do you think these young running backs can steal some snaps from these older guys?
Yeah, dude, that's a really good question. Coach O in his press conference yesterday or Saturday, if we're releasing this on Monday, he had his press conference after the scrimmage. Like you said, the 2 veteran guys didn't take any snaps. Tyrion Davis-Price was out, I guess, maybe with injury. I've heard that report. I'm not so sure where I fall on that just because of Coach O's comments. John Emery was obviously out as well. But, dude, Armani Goodwin looks like he just based on the scrimmage might be the guy. Him and Corey Kiner, they kind of split reps. I think Armani Goodwin got a few more. But this quote from Coach O kind of got me. He said, we need these guys to come out and perform. These young running backs have been out there every day. Terry and John have been off and on. Again, I believe in them. They're great backs. We need some consistency out there, out of both of them, and we haven't gotten it in camp. He sounded pretty frustrated when he said that, Zach. Someone was asking him about the running back situation as well. I'm not taking this out of context. I'm not sure what's going on with these guys, and that's kind of been the story since they came on campus. And I'm gonna, I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can because I like these guys. I want them to succeed, but this has kind of been what's happened since they were true freshmen. I mean, I think I can't remember which one. One of them was a 5-star, one was a 4-star, and I can't remember which way it landed. I think John Emery was the 5-star, but. It's tough, especially when you hear like in the off season about how John Emery's developed so much as more of a receiving back. I mean, you come out so excited for things like this, and then Coach O says like they haven't been out there, and it doesn't sound like it's because of medical reasons. It kind of more sounds like it's like I don't know if it's frustrations. I don't know what's going on. I mean, there just hasn't been anything out there like this is happening, so this is why they're not there. Like there's absolutely no reason for John Emery to not be out there, right?
Yeah, based on all reports, they're just it sounded like rep management, but they both have injury history, so it could just be that they're just being extra cautious.
And the thing is, like, they weren't in the scrimmage, and I understand if you're not in the scrimmage, but they just didn't participate in fall camp. which like that's super concerning to me. That's concerning to me. It's concerning to me when I don't know if this is a thing that everybody else gets, but I know LSU Twitter's like this. I know like LSU whatever, the LSU community's like this. Everyone's talking about the energy around this team and how the energy is so good. And this reminds me of the 2019 team. That energy doesn't matter, Zach, when we're coming off of a 5-5 season, does it? Like, how could we possibly be talking about energy when we just got off of fall camp? We just saw the scrimmage and we weren't wowed by anything other than maybe two freshmen's performance. I was pretty wowed by Nussmaier's performance and by Mason Smith's 3-sack performance on Saturday. But outside of that, like, there's a lot of question marks around this team. There honestly are, and I don't think LSU fans are seeing this. I don't think a lot of fans are seeing this because I'm hearing like, oh, LSU is going to be a sleeper. LSU can win the SEC. I heard Coach O's press conference. I watched the game, and it's not looking super promising, Zach.
Oh, man, that's tough. And I mean, I wanted to add, like, also the offensive line's been a weird development as too. There's been some questions at the guard spot on the interior of that offensive line, and Coach O sounded a lot, I guess, more pleased with their performance, but still, Mason Smith with 3 sacks. I think Xavier Carter also had 2 sacks on the offensive line. Do you think the offensive line is actual a question mark, or is it just that Ali Gay, BJ Ojolari, Mason Smith, Xavier Carter are just that good? Do you think it's good defense, or do you think the offensive line has something to worry about moving forward?
I don't think the offensive line really has a whole lot to worry about. I think they've made a lot of progression this offseason. That's honestly one of the positions I'm like definitely least worried about. I'm for the offense, I'm least worried about the offensive line and the wide receiving core. Outside of that, there's a lot of question marks. Garrett Nussmaier comes out and shows everybody up at the quarterback position. I mean, Max Johnson went 11 for 19 with 1 touchdown, 125 yards. So like that's not going to wow anybody. But I'm most confident in this offensive line, but this defensive line, Zach, might be outside of like cornerbacks. This might be like the greatest, this might be like the greatest position that LSU has. Like their defensive line is so nasty, and that's with Glenn Logan missing time due to injury. That's the only reason that Mason Smith's even playing right now is because Glenn Logan's out. So I don't know, man. I think Mason Smith's going to have a lot of time to shine this for at least the beginning portion of this season. But to answer your question, I do think it's the defensive line being that good. I really do. And hopefully I don't come off as biased there because I just talked down on LSU's overall performance. But yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I mean, Sid, I know there's some talk about Nussmaier taking the job from Max Johnson, and I just want to address as a non-biased fan, can we pump the brakes a little bit, LSU fans? Like that article, like I've read the article. I don't remember what website it was on. Brandon sent it to me. Let's pump the brakes. It was a scrimmage where he went up against the second string defense. Like, pump the brakes just a little bit. He wasn't going up against Stingley and Eli Ricks and like, he went up against the second string defense and he still had a pick. And he's not going to start over Max Johnson right now unless Max Johnson comes out and chokes it away. It's not a quarterback battle, so that's just a fake storyline, in my opinion, that's being started. Max Johnson is the starter. But before we move on, Brandon, there's one position I do want to ask you about. Sage Ryan still out with the nagging injury, but on the flip side, Jay Ward looks to be the real deal on the back end of that defense. Do you think Jay Ward is the guy to kind of fill in that safety void that LSU has? And where does Sage Ryan sit in terms of when he gets back? Is he going to even have a fair shot at that position, or is Jay Ward kind of clinched that up?
That's a good question. I think Jay Ward's kind of got it for now. Like even if Sage Ryan comes back, I think the two safeties are going to end up being Todd Harris and Jay Ward. That's how I feel. They look decent enough in scrimmage.
Isn't the other safety going to be Major Burns from Georgia? I think he's going to be one of the other starters, right?
He might be. I don't see LSU benching Todd Harris just because he's been a pretty major part of this defense since 2019. It might even be Todd Harris and Major Burns. So it might not even be Jay Ward, period. But
depth is always good to have, man. And LSU has probably 4 safeties that would start at a lot of other places.
Exactly. And the depth chart that I've been looking at, Zach, it shows Todd Harris and yeah, I'm sorry. The depth chart I'm looking at from LSU shows Todd Harris and Jay Ward starting. Second string would be Jordan Tolles and Major Burns, and then third string, that's where Sage Ryan comes into play.
Yeah, because he hasn't practiced. So, I mean, you can't start a freshman if he can't even practice in fall camp. So,
Major Burns, and let me get this straight. I'm not saying that Major Burns doesn't deserve to start at some point, even during this season. But Todd Harris, he's a redshirt senior. He's a fifth-year senior on this team. Jay Ward's a junior. It's just these veteran guys who've been there. I think that Coach O, just by the way that he usually plays things anyway, he has this weird thing where he leans toward like how long a player's been there rather than like, oh, who's the absolute best player to play right now. And that's kind of, I think, one of his faults. But I as of right now, the reports I'm seeing, I see Todd Harris and Jay Ward starting at safety.
Oh, like, hey, that secondary is going to be so good, man. I mean, and let's not Eli Ricks and them, they got the starting job. No one's challenging Stingley and Ricks at the corner spot. I guess Cordell Flott will probably slide into the corner slot role, most likely. I mean, he has a lot of experience now, and I like Flott there. But let's move over to the Pac-12, man. This is such a great headline, too. Offensive revolution in Seattle. Possibly, with the question mark, and it's because Jimmy Lake's a defensive guy. Washington has been, Brandon, they're like a school that should be in the DBU conversation, like right there, like that 4, 5, and 6 spot, but no one mentions them.
Yeah,
and they've had some of the most DBs drafted out of anybody, and like one of the best secondaries in the country year in and out, and no one talks about it, but a lot of people are very impressed with this offense up there in Seattle, guys. Dylan Morris has won the QB battle. I know a lot of people couldn't wait to see the 5-star kid they had coming in, but they're going to hold it off. Dylan Morris has won this job. He was the starter last year, Brandon. Got them to the Pac-12 championship. COVID took the opportunity away. They would have had a great shot against USC, in my opinion. But Lake has been saying he's very even killed. He's the barometer for the offense. That even tempered demeanor is really what sets him apart. You could see that he's like when he has a bad throw, Brandon, his memory is very short term, and that the offense, Brandon, has not had a turnover in 3 days.
God, that's incredible. I didn't know that stat.
Yes, and also on that the defensive backs can, that they're there. This defense is going to be good, Brandon, but the offense is making smart plays. Dylan Morris is leading the offense, and that running game's going to be there. And so in all these scrimmages and everything like that, what he wants to work on now is drops. The biggest thing has been drops. Sam Heward, was the 5-star and I guess the 5-star backup. They said he's been improving, been getting better on throws, but consistency is his big thing, which is holding him back from challenging Dylan Morris. So, Brandon, what do you think the offensive potential is for Washington? And if they can get this offense to come along, could we see Washington really be a sleeper for the Pac-12 title this year?
I don't know how you can call them a sleeper, Zach, because they should have been in the Pac-12 championship last season.
I'll give you that.
They should have been the number one team going into that game. And then Oregon goes in and beats USC because Washington has a COVID outbreak. But over the 4 games that Washington played last season, Dylan Morris was the starter in all of those. I think he absolutely deserved the starting spot. He played really well. I mean, he had a 61% completion percentage last season. And on top of that, he had 4 touchdowns. He did have 3 interceptions, but he was playing as a freshman last year. I feel like we forget about that a lot.
I don't think freshmen last year get a fair rap either. That's a freshman without an off season, without a spring camp, without a summer camp, without a full fall install. And then in the Pac-12, Brandon, Washington had like their first 2 games canceled. So just think about all the uncertainty he played with, all the chemistry issues they could have had. This is really, for me, this is a true first year to really judge some of these freshmen that played last year. People don't talk about that enough, and I think they unfairly judge a lot of these freshmen from last year.
Yeah. I think you're right, Zach. And Dylan Morris, I mean, he's been named the starter for 2 weeks now. I don't think there's ever really a question. Yeah, there's a 5-star kid coming in. I just don't see how you could take this job away from Dylan Morris. And thank God this offense is booming the way that they are, because this defense is this defense is a little bit rough, Zach. I'm sure we're going to get to that, but Washington, I can definitely see them. I mean, like I said, the play by Dylan Morris alone last season was good enough for me. I mean, like I said, they should have made the Pac-12 title. I could definitely see them running it back again this season and maybe doing the same thing.
I agree. I mean, I like what Josh Donovan, the offensive coordinator, is doing. I don't agree with your statement on the defense. We'll get to that in a second. But, Brandon, they have the number 1 ranked offensive line in the Pac-12 this year. Yeah. So, one, I think he's going to have a lot better protection than he did last year. Brandon, he still had an 81 grade as a true freshman, his average depth of target was about 10.2. So he's pushing the ball down the field. And for me, I really like Dylan Morris and just kind of that playmaking ability he has. I'm excited. The one question I do have is the wide receiving core, though, Brandon. They rank 6th in the Pac-12 in wide receiving core, and I just don't think the depth is there. They got some top guys I think that can go and make plays. Their tight end is one of the best in the Pac-12 in Cade Otton, but outside of that, I have a little bit of concern there. I mean, their running game has big question marks, but according to all the camp reports, they've been running the ball very well, and I think it's because of that offensive line. You can have average running backs if the holes are the size for a truck to go through. So that's kind of how I think they'll average that out, and we're going to find out early what they're made of. That Michigan game, September 11th, is coming real fast after they get through Montana week 1. And then week 3, Brandon, is not a pushover game. Arkansas State went in and beat Kansas State by 14 the week after they beat Oklahoma. So yeah. I think we're gonna find out what Washington is very early, and then Cal, their first conference game, the 25th, is going to be a big one. They're lucky though, Brandon. They avoid USC as a cross division opponent, and 2, they don't play Oregon until the 6th of November, so it gives some time for this offense to gel. And I think what you mean by defensive question marks is the linebacker spot, which I'll let you cover in a second. But they have the best secondary in the Pac-12, Brandon. It's probably top 10 in the nation. The defensive line, the defensive line's a top 5 D line in the Pac-12. And the one player you have to watch, of course, is Trent McDuffie at cornerback, Brandon. He was the 22nd highest rated DB last year. And I thought he did a great job. He only allowed 0.81 yards per cover snap last year, which is one of the best in the country. And on top of that, Brandon, they landed Buki Radley-Hiles out of Oklahoma, one of the best star, hybrid safeties in the country. And on top of that, their best pass rushers come back. Ryan Bowman is back. Zion Fatui is back at the edge spot. So I love what they have there. Kyler Gordon at corner is going to be someone who could probably step in and replace Elijah Molden, who's off to the NFL. But I do agree that I do have some question marks about the linebacking room. So I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, dude. So I don't know if you saw this report, but I think it was last week. We saw, and please, guys, forgive my pronunciation because it's not going to be right. It's just not. But Mickey and Will Latu, they're no longer with the team. There was no reason given. It said it was personal and family matters. So I hope the best for these guys, as always. I never hope to see players be wrong in any way. So I hope these guys are able to see the field again. I hope that everything works out for them. But they're no longer with the team. That's 2 inside linebackers, Zach. So that's a major concern for me because the depth just is not going to be there this season. Latu was a true freshman, but he was a pretty highly touted true freshman. From what I'm hearing from Washington fans and Washington articles and everything else, is that he was highly anticipated, and they were hoping that he would be not necessarily starting the season, but they were hoping that he would be a big part of this linebacking core and at least give them some depth, if nothing else. So with both of those players gone about 3 weeks before the season starts, that obviously is going to have a huge impact on this linebacking room. And not only that, but to cover these inside linebackers, they are moving Carson Bruner, who's an outside linebacker last season, to inside linebacker just to kind of beef it up a little bit. So I think that leaves them spread fairly thin in that position. Yeah, you mentioned the DBs, and I agree with you. I think their defensive backs are extremely underrated. And their D line is good as well, but you have to have every single core filled out to be able to compete in a conference like the Pac-12, any Power 5 conference really.
Yeah, and I mean, when your top competition is bringing CJ Verdell to the table, you better
Yeah.
have some linebackers that can make some plays in the gaps and be disciplined when you face someone like that. So I think they're easily the second best team in that division, right there behind Oregon. I think it's going to be a huge rivalry battle right there. I think they go to Seattle this year for that game, so that'll be a huge one to watch. But yeah, I think Washington, the offense is looking great. Linebackers really the only question mark coming out of fall camp for me. So that's the latest, guys, on Michigan State, LSU, and Washington. Comment below your thoughts, opinions, anything you've heard, and we'll interact with y'all in the comments, man. We love all the interactions. Shout out to y'all. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe, man. That way you can join us for the college ball season. We got so much content on the way. Guys, we'll be back tonight on Monday, man. Monday, August 23rd, tonight at 7 p.m. Central. We're doing our Pac 12 preview. So, all you Washington fans tune into that as well. We'll be making our official predictions, going over games to watch, players to watch, all that good stuff live right here on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And we'll be back later this week with some more fall camp storylines and updates for you guys. But for B Dub, myself, and the Blue Bloods guys, we are out.